I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up with the head. Intercepted. 30. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going streaking as they notch their third win in 3 weeks. 28-13, your final score. The Bucs on top of the Raiders. They advance their record to 7-6, and with a win today and a Falcons loss to the Minnesota Vikings, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will end this week back in first place in the NFC South division. So we'll say it was an ugly win. It was another roller coaster of a game, which we're going to do our best to break down here over the next hour or so. But welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a live edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I am your host, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. Your thoughts on this game? The Buccaneers victorious, but certainly a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, it's officially a win streak now, right? Because a streak is considered in sports, right? 2 in a row is 2 in a row, but a streak is 3, typically, right? The 2 in a row is just back-to-back games. But yeah, now you're, Will Ferrell, we're going streaking thing to, bring your green hat and invite Snoop Dogg. So, yeah, but I mean, looks like I think you described it best when you said sort of roller coaster. Now, not as much roller coaster as last week, obviously. Which I mean, that's going to be pretty hard to top. But there was times in this game when things looked great, right? There was times in this game when it resembled that Giants game from just a couple weeks ago, where you're like, all right, the Bucs, one, they get the ball first, and they go down with a long drive that takes up a lot of clock. They end it with a touchdown. Then the ensuing, defensive possession, they force the 3 and out. The offense immediately back onto the field, and then they go again, up 14-0. And at that point, you're thinking, this could maybe a game similar, to that Giants game where, there's not really much hope for the other team, and it's kind of over, by halftime. The Bucs were up 24-0 in that game at halftime. So there's that. But then the second quarter happens, and it's sort of the tale of 2 quarters in that first half there for the Bucs. The first quarter was great, and the second quarter they sort of unraveled. And there's a particular person, I think, who unraveled, and we'll get into that, obviously. But then, third quarter, kind of a weird one. They didn't really have much possession of the football. I mean, the Raiders had a 9-minute drive. Really clutch play from Tyke Smith with the interception, which didn't seem like the Bucs were ever going to get another interception this season. So nice to see the streak has finally snapped. So they get their first interception since week 6. And they had a couple. They had 2 today that were like almost, but not quite. So they had a couple more opportunities. And then the fourth quarter made some clutch plays, obviously. So the big one to Mike Evans, then obviously the big one to Cade Otton to really top it off, and then that one to Jalen McMillan. So McMillan had a pretty nice day, 2 touchdowns on the day from Jalen McMillan. So pretty nice to see him get involved there. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a roller coaster. It's a win, but there's a lot of things here that they're gonna have to clean up, if they want to realistically compete, in the playoffs and for the rest of the season. Just because they're sitting at the top of the NFC South today doesn't mean that can be the case in 2-3 weeks. So they got to be able to right the ship here and improve on a lot of different things.
Yeah, a lot of guys stepping up on both sides of the ball today. Injury is going to be a key storyline for another week in a row, and a lot of shenanigans that always seemed to take place in a game like this. I don't know what it was about today. It was chock full of turnovers. You talked about some of those turnovers, some of those interceptions being reviewed and then taken away. So you got a couple of drop picks on top of that. There was a lot of drama. Just a lot of funny things played out. Seemed pretty fitting here for the old Pirate Bowl. But it is what it is. The Buccaneers do find a way to win. Let's start with the quarterback, as you said, kind of the catalyst for a lot of the problems the Buccaneers faced, especially on offense today, were the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. You got to be honest. His day in the box score looks like this: 18 for 29, 295 through the air passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and then 1 fumble lost, which was a costly turnover for Tampa Bay. You're not going to be able to turn the ball over 3 times in that first half and beat a lot of teams. Todd Bowles said it at halftime, and we're going to reiterate it again here. This game, granted, like you said, felt like a little less of a roller coaster overall than the Panthers game last week, but for Baker Mayfield, I mean, we saw in that first quarter, the first drive of the game, they're actively getting guys involved. Liam Cohen has got Baker getting the football out of his hands quickly. He's finding that first read. They were getting the running backs involved, and injuries played a role there, but after such a great first quarter, in the second quarter, I'd argue Baker Mayfield had the biggest collapse in Raymond James Stadium. And yes, the Bucs were able to bounce back and win, but overall, an up and down day for Baker Mayfield, which is interesting considering how badly the Bucs need to win these games and the stakes at what they're playing for right now. You know, I think these are very high pressure situations, and you might need your quarterback to just be able to lock in a little bit longer. You know, Baker caused a lot of the problems for the Bucs today, I thought.
No, I think he definitely did. And look, there was, to be honest, like if things had turned out differently, you know, here and there, and they would have lost this football game, I think you could have pinned it on the quarterback. I really do. That second quarter was one of the worst quarters of football from a quarterback I've seen in a long time. I mean, it was bad. Poor decision making, holding onto the football too long. Now I understand, you know, the first interception. It's a really, really talented play by Chase on there. That's a really good play. But then obviously has the fumble, then took a couple sacks here and there. You know, just trying to force the ball, and then, you know, at the end of the half there, you're taking points away, basically. You know, you would have had almost a guaranteed 3 points, and instead it's an interception. So on a ball that had no business being thrown, there wasn't anybody open. You just threw it up in the air, and he took 3 points away from the Bucs right before half there, and that hurt. So yeah, he definitely needs to be better. Obviously, you know, 5 turnovers in the past 2 games now for Baker Mayfield. We've seen this at times, you know, with last year too. We've seen it at times this year so far of, you know, how it'll come in sort of bunches, you know, for him. When the turnovers happen, they sort of happen. And yes, they were able to win this football game, but I think it's, you know, the Bucs were up this entire time. You know, they were up the entire game, right? I think that's really a testament to how bad Vegas actually is, not how good the Bucs played. Because just like you said, look, if that's a better team you're playing with that second quarter performance, the Bucs are down, maybe multiple scores. With how bad, you know, Baker Mayfield had played in that second quarter, you can't expect, like you said, to have 3 turnovers in 1 quarter and expect to win many football games. That's just not going to happen. So they were able to do it this time, but even next week against the Chargers, who are a better football team, like that can't happen, or else you're not going to have any shot to win.
Yeah, and going along the lines of shenanigans that I mentioned earlier, just one instance of those turnovers really biting Tampa in the ass, especially after they had already been bailed out. There were back-to-back drives that ended in a Baker Mayfield turnover. It was I think it was the first possession on offense for the Buccaneers in that second quarter, which, let's not forget, that first quarter performance, how hot they came out of the gate. Yeah. I mean, it didn't look like the Raiders were going to have an answer, because you kind of expected the Bucs to just beat up on the Raiders after they opened the game like that. I mean, the ebbs and flow of a football game obviously on full display here, but anyways, this series, the Buccaneers get the ball here in the second quarter. It's an ugly interception on an ugly throw. Levante David recovers the botched snap immediately after. Like the play after. They're playing turnover tag. I think I saw the term thrown around a couple of times today. Levante David takes back the ball. His 19th career fumble recovery, by the way, most in the NFL among active players since 2012. So the greatness streak continues for Levante David, who did have a strong game today. A sack for Levante David. We'll talk about that later. And then they make their way down the field, and ultimately that drive ends with the sack on third down. The strip sack. The Raiders recover. And it is what it is. It's unfortunate that these are the types of plays that continue to happen. But yeah, it was an all-out collapse for Baker in the second quarter. He's got to be better. Made some plays down the stretch. We'll talk about some of the other big playmakers here on the offensive side of the ball. On the final drive of the game, I'd say probably the biggest pass catcher for the Buccaneers today, a guy who needed a big game, was Jalen McMillan, the rookie out of nowhere. 4 receptions, 59 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A guy who, as we have spoken about before, has had a lot of pressure on him this season just because of the situation they find themselves in with Chris Godwin. I know the injury makes that a different discussion, but he still needs to step up because of the injury. He stepped up in a big way today, found the end zone twice on the opening drive of the game, and then to seal the deal there at the end and put it up on the shelf.
He's somebody who, the Bucs need to have step up. It's pretty simple. It's I think you're hoping, as the rookie season goes on, that like, okay, time to take the training wheels off a little bit and like get going here. Basically, you're not. Yes, you're still in your rookie season, but this is week 14 now. Like you're kind of not a rookie, right? Like you've seen a lot of football now. You know the speed of the NFL. There's not really much that should surprise you at this point. What NFL teams are gonna throw at you. So yeah, it was good to see him find the end zone twice, make 2 pretty big impact plays. Like you said, one to open the game basically, and then one to close it. So it was good to see that. You'd like to see him getting a little bit more involved, maybe in between, right? In between those two. But there's only one football, and again the offense was kind of off for a lot of, honestly, for a good 2.5 quarters. I think the offense was kind of off, right? And they had turned it on the first quarter, and they turned it on the last little bit of the fourth quarter there. But the second and third quarters, they didn't really do a whole lot with it. So there's a lot of good things I think you saw from McMillan today, and again they're gonna need that if they want to realistically. If they want to compete, because it can't just be one guy, it can't just be Mike Evans, and now, you got Bucky Irving, banged up, which I think it was a little bit, more so precautionary. I don't think the Bucs wanted to push it. I know that because again, he played, wasn't as effective really. I think you could tell the hip maybe bothering him a little bit, maybe bothered him a little bit more than they were hoping. So they kept him out of the game. So I mean, with him out, who knows, what his status is for next week. We'll have to wait and see. But you're gonna need somebody else to step up on that offense. And today it was. I mean, Jalen McMillan stepped up a little bit, and Mike Evans had his moments. But a guy like Rachaad White. This is a guy who, again, kind of took a back seat, at least in the headlines, right, to Bucky Irving. After Irving, has been great, but Rachaad White kind of took a back seat, and he had a big day today as well. So, scores the touchdown. To increase the lead to 14-0, and then makes a couple of nice plays there during the stretch. I actually thought they should have given the ball to him more. I thought they should have ran the ball a bit more, especially with Baker's struggles today. It just felt like an easier way to run an offense, just sort of lean on your run game a little bit more, and they didn't go that route. But it is what it is. But I thought Rachaad White had a good day today. But yeah, McMillan, his contributions were noticeable and obviously impactful.
Yeah, you had noticed, the Buccaneers getting away from the run game. It was a little odd because they led the entire game. You'd think they would rely on the run game a little bit more. When the offense wasn't able to find much of a rhythm, it was because the pass game couldn't get going. You had a quarterback in the middle of a meltdown, and they kept throwing the football. So the Bucs just kept stalling out. They kept going out there and giving us a 3-and-out, punting the football away. We'll talk about the punter as well before we wrap up today, making his debut today. But Rachaad White, the angry run for him. He might be a candidate this week for that scepter that they like to give out over there on the NFL Network. 17 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown for him, averaging 5.3 yards a tote. When you talk about the run game, you got to mention Sean Tucker getting involved. 3 carries is all he needed. 47 yards, averaging 15.7 yards per tote. He breaks away for a big-time 30-plus yarder on the final drive of the game, and that was one of 2 big plays on that final drive of the game that allowed everybody to exhale. Everybody in Raymond James kind of knew the Bucs were set up to win the game. He was one of those 2 big impact plays. So, Sean Tucker stepping up a little bit in the absence here of Bucky Irving. I'm not going to die on the hill so much as I have in weeks previously, Evan, about Sean Tucker getting involved. He is there if the Bucs need him. Bucky Irving, like you said, probably just being precautionary with him. He didn't practice this week, so they want to take it easy. They know that he is a valuable asset for the offense right now, but Sean Tucker proven he can still get in there and do it if he has to.
Yeah, and again, like you said, I think when they need him, they will use him. And today with Bucky Irving going down, they need him, and that's a good problem to have. It's a good, there's a good problem to have when you have a guy like that can step up and come in when a guy like Bucky Irving or Rachaad White were to go down. So yeah, I do think that's a good thing. I know some people want to see Sean Tucker more involved, and I get it, but I do think that he has his role in this team, and this is kind of what his role is now. I think he's pretty effective at the role, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think, like you said, he had the big run, which I mean really helped, almost seal the deal pretty much for the Bucs, really giving them that momentum basically that they needed. So yeah, I thought Sean Tucker did fine today. I thought the run game, overall did fine. So, and again, with Bucky Irving's status, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Sean Tucker gets another crack at it next week. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Rounding out the offense here for the day, your top playmakers, Cade Otton, your leading receiver. And the other big impact play on the final drive of the game was a big 30-plus yard, a 44-yard completion to Cade Otton. I think his career high. But 3 catches, 70 yards today for the big tight end. Mike Evans getting involved, 4 catches for 69 yards. Sterling Shepard had a strong day, I thought. He showed up and certainly celebrated to make sure you notice he caught the ball. But 4 big-time catches for him and 63 yards. Talking a little bit more about some of these other wide receivers on the roster, aside from Mike Evans, you've needed guys to step up, and Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, as of this week, have certainly been 2 of the guys to answer that call, you could say.
Definitely. I thought Shepard, had a pretty nice day today as well. Converted a couple of third downs, a couple of third and longs. They converted going to Sterling Shepard. So, yeah. Again, it's not always going to be the Mike Evans show, right? I know that a lot of people want to get the 1K yards and stuff like that, but guess what? The defenses know that too, right? So they're going to be who's the one guy they're going to be keying on when it comes to the passing game, right? Like they're going to be keying on Mike Evans. So you're going to have somebody else step up, and Cade Otton was that guy, right? Today for the quiet leading receiver, by the way, very quiet. I understand it's the one play that's an outlaw, that helps the numbers, that boosts the numbers, but a very quiet team leader, I guess, in receiving. But yeah, you had multiple people step up today. You talked about Cade Otton. We already talked about Jalen McMillan, and we mentioned Sterling Shepard today, and Mike Evans, had some nice yards too. So that's what I think this offense with Chris Godwin not there anymore. I think that's what this offense needs to have happen. As we have a $10 super chat from Amazement 717. Shout out to you, Amazement. Thank you very much. He says, Baker having a short-term memory is a gift and a curse to me. It's good that he brushes off bad plays, but sometimes he forces balls and tries to be a hero, going for a home run instead of taking singles. Yeah, it reminds me of somebody. But so I mean, and he's not to that extreme point, right? But I do agree, and I also think that's part of the offensive game plan I didn't exactly understand today. I know that the point of emphasis, they wanted to be able to push the ball down the field a little bit more than they have in the previous games, but like, this offense has been working, like, sort of dinking and dunking. Like, I do think, yeah, like, being able to stretch the field is important, but, like, it's not like the offense has been stagnant, with what they've been doing. It just seemed like they sort of got away from what has been working for them in the past, and that was another reason that Mayfield had to hold on to the ball. I mean, there was times where, I think he held onto the ball too long, where he could have let it go, but also he'd hold on to the ball a little bit longer sometimes with those longer developing routes. So, yeah, I definitely agree that it's a good thing, that he can just forget about it and it doesn't cook him for the rest of the game pretty much, because one mistake, you can't crumble after one mistake. But also, yeah, it is like you said, a gift and a curse, because he's going to be trying to do it again. He's not going to go out there scared. He's going to be playing fearless, and that has its ups and its downs, and you've seen that the past 2 years, sure, but you saw, especially the past, I think, 2 weeks, you've seen that sort of up close, I guess.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with the theme of playing a complete game, but also keeping in mind trying your best to play a complete game against better competition. We spoke to, kind of how sloppy the Raiders played today, and that's a huge part as to why the Buccaneers were even in this game. If they were playing a better football team and Baker turns the ball over like that, if it is the postseason and Baker turns the ball over like that, you might not be able to recover, because outside of the defensive performance this week against a bad Raiders offense with their 7th string quarterback, if the defense isn't taking the ball away as much as they were today, you don't know if the Bucs are able to bail themselves out. And you're not going to have as many chances to do that against better teams. But yeah, Evan, as we kind of shift the focus to the other side of the football here, we'll talk about playing a complete 4 quarters. Today was a chance for the Buccaneers to show that they can do that against an inferior opponent. The Raiders coming into this game at 2-8, there were obvious weaknesses there, and it was a competitive game at times. But as we talked about on the midweek show, the Bucs have a lot of playoff potential. They have a lot of flashes. You see the first quarter of that game where they only allow 14 yards of offense from the Raiders. It was their second lowest number on defense since the Philly game, where they allowed 0 yards of offense in that first quarter. So, I mean, it was about as good of a start as you could have asked for from this Bucs team. They look like world beaters, and then they fall into this habit of playing down to their competition and making these games competitive when they really shouldn't be. And a lot of it happens because of turnovers, your defense being unreliable, ultimately just the Bucs shooting themselves in the foot. And that's got to stop.
Yeah, it has to stop, or else, one of two things will happen. You either A, won't make the playoffs because you won't win enough games down the stretch here, or B, if you do make the playoffs, you're going to get crushed, because that's what's going to happen. You have to play clean football games. The self-inflicted mistakes just simply cannot happen. So, and it's easier, to recover from those mistakes against a lesser competition. Sure, it is easier to recover from that against that. But yeah, when you're playing better teams, you're not going to be able to overcome that, right? You're not going to be able to overcome 3 turnovers in one quarter. That's going to be pretty much put the nail in the coffin for you right there. Because a better team is going to be able to capitalize on those mistakes. And, like I said, it was a sort of a testament to how bad Vegas is. Vegas was not a very good football team. I think when I looked at this, 7-game stretch, before it, I looked at, the Giants and the Raiders. I think is the 2 worst teams, that the Bucs were going to play probably. So, they're able to get 2 wins. The Giants one was in convincing fashion, but yeah, you'd like to see this game, be able to stomp on a throat a little bit, right? And you have the 14-0 lead right out of the gate. Come out and don't turn the ball over 3 times in one quarter. You really gifted the Raiders a lot of favorable field position, a lot of momentum, and I thought the defense did its job today, especially with a lot of the injuries. Antoine Winfield Jr. also left this game with a knee injury. Don't have any update on him right now. Just something you have to monitor throughout the week. But I mean, look, they were down 2 linebackers, KJ Britt and JJ Russell, and then at one point they were down 3 safeties, right? Antoine Winfield Jr., Jordan Whitehead, and Edwards. They were down all 3 of those guys. So again, you're playing lesser competition. I understand that the Vegas offense is not some powerhouse offense, but the defense did its job enough, and the offense almost screwed it up though. And against a better team, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, while a win is a win, sure, and I know there's going to be people that look at it that way. Well, at least they won. You're correct, right? You are correct on that. But looking at the bigger picture here, if they want to go far, they're going to have to clean this stuff up, and it's going to have to be a lot better than it has been the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that the Buccaneers were outplayed today. Far from that, because they played a much better game than the Raiders. The scoreboard, certain stats are indicative of that, but they lost the time of possession battle. They lost the turnover battle. And as you said, those turnovers were so backbreaking because you are gifting the Raiders such great field position. Even some of the punts the Bucs had today, Jack Browning, his debut was not impressive. One last little sidebar here about the Buccaneers offense. An up and down day for the offensive line. Couple of backbreaking penalties. Ben Bredesen, Cody Mauch, whoever the hell they felt like throwing a flag on that play, they never really figured it out. But you had a couple of costly penalties that were, setting you back, and the offense was already having a hard time finding a rhythm. I know Baker is probably to blame for most of the sacks he took today. I think they allowed the Raiders pass rush to get to him 4 separate times. Max Crosby is an issue. We have said that before. We will say it again. He was everywhere today. He is omnipresent. I don't know what it is about that guy, but he always has a nose for the play. And he played a good football game today, batted down a pass attempt from Baker Mayfield, and was able to bring some more pressure and really take advantage of whatever offensive tackle he was playing against. But, overall, up and down day, they did enough to win, but certainly need to fix some things and fine-tune it before the postseason really begins. And now, the Bucs still have to win some games down the stretch here because they're going to continue to try and keep Atlanta at arm's length. If the Falcons can keep losing games, it'll be easier for them, but by no means, now that they are first place in the division, can they take their foot off of the pedal.
Well, yeah, I mean, now the Falcons' next game is against the Raiders. So, like, the Falcons' next 2 games are against the Raiders and the Giants. So, the Bucs took care of business and did what they needed to do against those 2 teams, right? They won. However, now the Falcons are probably expected to get 2 wins right there, right? I would expect. Is it impossible for either one of those teams to win? I guess not, but I would expect the Falcons to probably win both those games. So I think it's honestly going to come down to whether or not the Falcons beat the Commanders. Week 17, they're at Washington, so I think that game is going to be pretty massive for just where the Bucs' chances. If everything goes how I think it's going to go, I think, next week against LA is a tough game. Now, if the Bucs can, again, you're you're right now. The Bucs are going to be the team kind of trying to keep, Atlanta away now, right? You're trying to play defense now a little bit here. So, yeah, I do think that, it's going to be close down the stretch, and I think there's a lot of football left to be played, though. And like we said, they've got to play better, and it helps. Just like you said, with Atlanta losing football games like that helps. Kirk Cousins actually, I believe, during this stretch of Atlanta losing 4 in a row, Kirk Cousins has 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That feels pretty hard to do, to be honest with you.
Well, it's insane considering the fact he played as well as he did against Tampa. This guy is good against Todd Bowles and his defense, but is apparently just about mediocre against every other team in the NFL this year. So it's going to be interesting these next 2 weeks for Atlanta for sure, with the Buccaneers in more of a defensive position in the NFC South lead. But looking at the other side of the football here for Tampa Bay, you said the defense did their job. They ended the turnover drought. Tyke Smith stepping up in a big way, gets the interception there. The last Buccaneer to get an interception was Tyke Smith all the way back in week 6. So he returns to the lineup today, picks up exactly where he left off. A couple of interceptions that were turned over, gone under review. The officials pick it up, and then the Raiders get the ball back. But, in the safety room especially, guys were stepping up on a day that they needed to step up. Christian Izien was all over the football field, made a couple of big-time tackles, and Kayvon Merriweather as well. A lot of guys stepped up today on the defensive side of the ball, and they really saved the game a few times.
I thought Kayvon Merriweather was awesome. I thought he was great in this game. One of their better defenders out there, honestly. I was really, really impressed. Made a couple of nice tackles as well in the game. So, yeah, really impressed with him coming off, coming in earlier this week, right? Being signed, obviously his second stint with the team, but wasn't on the team, this time last week. So they sign him because, Mike Edwards goes down and Jordan Whitehead's already out. And now, he may need to play another big role. Edwards is, I think, supposed to be back, this coming week, but who knows about Antoine Winfield Jr. now? So we don't really know. So, yeah, I thought Kayvon Merriweather played a really, really good football game. Levante David, you mentioned him earlier. Really, I thought a good game as well for him today. Bucs pass rush wasn't as good, but their blitzes were hitting pretty consistently, so that helps. And I think they blitzed. It felt like they blitzed a lot. Which look, I think when your blitzes are hitting, I think it's hard. The temptation, I think, is hard to resist. I think to just continue to blitz when they're not able to pick them up. So and it's on the Bucs' first defensive drive, they send Levante David in on the blitz, he gets a sack. So yeah, I thought the defense did their job, right? They did enough, forced obviously a critical turnover after a long drive there by Vegas. Vegas has an opportunity there at that point. It's 14-10. They have an opportunity to take the lead with a touchdown. So Tyke Smith comes up with a big play there. So now we're on a different streak, right? Now we're on a streak of anyone, not named Tyke Smith getting an interception. So we'll see. Obviously, Zion McCollum almost had one. Merriweather himself almost had one. So again, there was close but no cigar there. But hopefully, they can come up with a couple more here because again, that's a big key too. And we talked, about the leading up to the game. We talked about the Raiders, and their turnovers, their issues that they've had with that, both forcing them and allowing them, and they forced, they forced three today, which is something that Tampa Bay should have avoided, but they also allowed a couple, so the Bucs did their job there, and the defense, kept the Raiders out of the end zone, I think a couple times, which was pretty important as well when the Raiders got down into the red zone. So I do think the defense deserves their props today. Again, it's not like they were playing the whatever, not like they were playing the Buffalo Bills out there, but I thought they got the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the timing of some of those turnovers. Tyke Smith, probably the most clutch play of the day. His interception, his first interception of the day, came at a critical time. The Raiders were driving. They were just about in scoring position, deep in Tampa Bay territory, and he takes the ball away. Talking more about this next man up mentality and where the defense finds themselves at right now, Evan. I mean, this is not uncharted territory for the secondary and the rest of this defense in particular. Vi Jones was active today at the linebacker position, so lineup changes are continuing to happen. But with a performance like today, there are still some things that need to be fixed. Mike Evans was visibly frustrated with the defense on the sideline at one point in this game, and that's because I think it was Jamel Dean had given up a weak tackle, and the receiver had picked up another 15, 20 yards after picking up the first down, and it was plays like that at times that were keeping the Raiders in this game. There were some back-breaking drives, don't get me wrong, like that 10-minute drive to start the second half. You can't get your defense off of the field. Those were gains of 4, 5, 6 yards at a time, but tackling was also an issue. Is that going to be an issue moving forward when they start playing better teams? How concerned are you with this defense moving forward? Because they absolutely did their job today. I think Todd Bowles deserves credit for having those guys ready to play, and they were able to make adjustments with the injuries throughout the game. That speaks a lot to what they've been able to do, but you're breaking down everything you can here as you get closer to the postseason. The Buccaneers still have some games to win. You need to play a complete 4 quarters, and this defense certainly goes into that discussion.
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned. Mostly because of the players they have in there. I mean, you're talking about Vi Jones, and we're talking about Kayvon Merriweather, and again, Merriweather played a great game today, but you're trying to push for a playoff spot, right? You're trying to win a playoff game, win multiple playoff games, get to the NFC Championship game, have progress from what you did last year, and are you really going to do that with Vi Jones as a starting linebacker, or Greg Gaines playing as much as he is, or whatever it may be? Like, I am concerned, because I don't know if the depth is there and the injuries just keep piling up, right? I mean, Antoine Winfield goes down. You get Tyke Smith back. Well, down goes Winfield, and now Mike Edwards hopefully can come back. But it just seems like they're injuries, and a lot of it's out of their control. But at the same time, I am, like I said, they got the job done. You just hope that a lot of these guys, one, aren't long term, right? Like you hope Winfield's not out long term. You hope that a lot of these guys aren't, seriously hurt. KJ Britt, I know a lot of people aren't KJ Britt fans, but look, he's better than Vi Jones. He just is. I know he's not very good. He's had his struggles, but he's better. He's a better option. There's a reason that KJ Britt was playing and Vi Jones wasn't. So, and it's the same thing with JJ Russell, right? Like there's a reason that KJ Britt was playing and JJ Russell wasn't. Like I get the want to give somebody else a look, but there's a reason he's playing over these guys. And also, like again, they're critical players, right? Aren't really doing as much. The Yaya Diabys of the world, Joe Tryon, I know he's been out with injury, but when he comes back, how effective is he going to be? Jamel Dean has not been very good this year. Obviously, you mentioned the missed tackle there. It would have been close to a first down. It was on the 4th down play, the 4th and 4 or whatever. It would have been close to a first down anyway, but like, yeah, you missed the tackle and he gained 10 more yards. Like, that can't really happen in that scenario. So, I definitely am a little bit concerned, but especially against these better teams. But again, anything can happen, and I hate to say it because it sounds so simple, but their best players just have to start playing like their best players. And Levante David played really good today. Vita Vea was pretty quiet today, but it is what it is. Um, yeah, but like when Winfield, hopefully he's not hurt long term. If he comes back, he needs to play good. Like he simply does. He hasn't been as good this season. So McCollum needs to continue what he's doing. So that's what I am concerned a little bit with the depth, to give a long-winded answer there. But yeah, like I said, against better offenses, it still is a concern for me.
Yeah, I thought overall the defense did a really good job today. Again, all things considered, you had the offense and special teams unit put them in kind of a tough spot at multiple times today. And they were able to step up and do enough to win the game down the stretch here. Some key takeaways. They allow the Buccaneers to win the game. They saved it multiple times. I said it before. I will say it again. Let's get to the fan line here to wrap some things up. As we wrap up Week 14, the Buccaneers on top of the Raiders here with 4 games left. Back over 500 at 7-6. From the 661, you've been holding for a long time. Sorry about that. We appreciate your patience. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
It's all good, man. It's Deontay from Vegas, man. How you guys doing?
Good, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Beating a 2-10 team. it's always a good day, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't be upset with that. I mean, the Bucs, a couple of miscues as we've been talking about, but they did the job for the most part. I think that the box score might be a little deceptive. It looks like the Bucs ran away with it when they really had to put it on the shelf there in the final few minutes. But, for the most part, you can't be upset. A win is a win, and the Bucs need all the wins they can get this time of year. So definitely happy about it for sure.
Absolutely, especially with Atlanta losing today. I believe that bumps us up to first place going into LA, which should be a good game. You guys got any predictions for that one? Well, we don't know the status of Winfield and everybody else. That plays a big part.
Yeah, obviously, Winfield status plays a big part. Obviously, Bucky Irving as well. I think, 2 guys that didn't really come back in today's game. So I want to wait and see the injury report for that. But I mean, look, it's not going to be. I mean, the Chargers are a legitimate, good football team. You're traveling across the country there to the West Coast, so it's not going to be easy. But again, there's been a couple of times where the Bucs have, gone, specifically on the road and had a couple of upsets. Obviously, Detroit earlier this year, but last year, dating back to when they went to Green Bay, was able to beat the Packers, and went to Atlanta, was able to beat the Falcons. So it's not impossible, but it's definitely going to be a challenge. And again, so we talked about in this show, like the Bucs are going to have to play better than they'd have the last 2 weeks if they want to win that game on Sunday.
Based off of the history of the Buccaneers' opponents here, I would expect a high drama finish for the game tonight. Sunday Night Football for the Chargers against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, maybe they take them to overtime. Maybe there's a controversial call to finish that game.
That's a third straight week that the Bucs opponent plays the Chiefs the week before.
Yeah, it is very odd. So expect an exciting game
that is
there.
weird.
But yeah, I think this game against the Chargers, it is a little scary, but it's an opportunity here at the end of the season to really see what you're made of, because you can go on a run and you can beat up on shitty teams all year long. But, the Chargers, I know it's a tough game for them tonight, but even if they lose, they come into this game at 8-5. They've been a little bit of a better team than Tampa has this year. So I'd like to see how the Bucs measure up to them. I think it'll be a tall task. And you know what? If that's the one game that they lose throughout the rest of the year, then that's not a bad thing either, considering it's an AFC team and you got 2 more division opponents here on the schedule.
Exactly.
But it's definitely the toughest matchup I think they have left.
It's one of those games where it can only help you, not really hurt you.
Yeah.
As far as like the standings and stuff goes, because it is a AFC team. History shows though that Tampa Bay, they do well versus LA teams, but especially playing well.
Yeah. Would love
you
to
guys
see it.
remember that LA game? I believe it was after the Rams went to the Super Bowl. It was in the Coliseum. I was at the game.
2019.
Where Jameis had that crazy game, threw that bomb to Mike Evans. Marcus Peters had a pick 6. Levante David had a pick. And Dominican Sue had a touchdown. Like that game was.
I think it was the fastest.
Man.
I think it was the fastest we ever saw Ndamukong Suh run in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. I think it was the scoop and score against his former team. He was
probably
able to sprint
any
that thing
uniform.
In. Yeah, that was awesome, man. Hey, we appreciate your call, my friend. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Well, I just think the Bucs, they match up well with the Chargers. Chargers like to run the ball a lot. I think this would be a good game for Vita Vea and Kancey to really impose the will, load the box. The only receiver they really got to worry about is Lamborghini Lad over there, which is like a short slot receiver, from Georgia. We have a nice rookie DB from Georgia, so I'm pretty sure they're pretty familiar with each other. So they'll probably be following each other around, and I have the Bucs actually winning this game and improving to 8-6.
There you go.
I like it. Lamborghini Lad. I'm going to start using that. We appreciate your call, my friend, and appreciate your support hanging out with us out west. Have a good rest of your weekend. Go Bucs.
Always, guys. Go Bucs.
Lamborghini Lad. I mean, that's a good point. Ladd McConkey is one of those guys that does have the makings of what we like to call around here a buck killer. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. A couple more calls here out of the 813 to get to. We appreciate you guys' patience hanging on with us. Who is this? You're on the Can of Fire podcast. Hello.
You're on the Who podcast? Which podcast is this?
Oh, goodness gracious. Ladies and gentlemen, checking in from maybe a parking lot outside Raymond James Stadium somewhere. This is a good personal friend of mine, broadcasting Raider legend and superfan J. Captain Jack Rackham returns to the show. It has been quite a long time since the last time we had Captain Jack on the show. I think it was the 2020 season, and then the last time before that, we did a game preview for the 2016 game between the Bucs and the Raiders. So 8 years here of history between us and Captain Jack. A long-winded intro, but excited to get your 2 cents on the game today, my friend.
Boy, I give you definitely more than 2 cents on this one. First off, okay, congratulations on ascending to the number 1 seed in your division with the Falcons choking.
Thank you.
So
Sir.
good on that as well. And again, I was like, and I'm going to be pretty blatantly honest. It's like I had one Buck fan says, "Yeah, you guys played a lot better than we give you credit for." And I'm like, really? I did not even begin. It was obviously right before halftime to remark on that. So yeah, the second half kind of let us down, losing. And I don't know what the status of Aiden O'Connell is, but losing O'Connell really hurt. The defense played well, but obviously at the very end, like we've seen many times, the defense was gassed. And when the defense is gassed, there's only so much you can do about it.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on head coach Antonio Pierce, overall where the Raiders find themselves at. We're getting a little bit of Raiders insight on the show today, but that's one of the biggest talking points because I liked Antonio Pierce a lot. It felt like, with the whole Josh McDaniels thing playing out the way that it did, there's a lot of times where you see an interim head coach step up for a team, and at the end of that year, fans feel like he should be given a chance, and that's exactly what happened. Pierce gets a chance with the Raiders, and unfortunately, they are in one of the worst windfalls I think he's ever had in his coaching career. Now, 9 straight losses for them, but when you look at the roster, you look at both of your quarterbacks going down and all of these other pieces that they have, what they're working with, how do you feel about the future of that franchise? And how do you feel about Antonio Pierce as their head coach right now?
I like the AP's the fact that he's a rah-rah guy. Now, hey, nice meeting you guys as well. I'm sorry, I'm talking to people over in the
Do your
park
thing,
now.
handle business.
Hey, you got it. But yeah, I was on the high last year with Antonio, the way that he got the team together and they were playing for him. So that was a good thing. And I think it was kind of like smoke and mirrors of what we thought our team could do this year. Now, I wasn't saying that we were going to go to the Super Bowl, although I did, place one of those sucker bets.
Who doesn't?
For the,
right.
the things. I don't bet on.
Sorry about
that. Oh, no worries, partner.
Hey,
thanks
Milton,
again.
man, I got you, brother.
Hey, thanks again there, Ryan.
Nothing all day, brother.
You got it, brother. Hey, we'll see you up next time.
Captain Jack, I got you, brother.
You got it. Hey, there you go. And send the pics. Send the pics. I'm sorry, gentlemen. Again, I'm talking with people here. But no, I was on a high for the people with what we saw. We take care, brother. I think we kind of got mesmerized by what we thought we could do and could see, and and all those things, and the team played so much better. But then they, and I think the big thing was that you have friggin' Gardner Minshew as your starting quarterback, which I did not agree with. And well, I don't. I got there. Gentlemen, I apologize. There's like 6 million people talking to me, and they want me to leave, and I got to stay here for like people or things as well.
You're good.
We are on a podcast, folks. My goodness, podcast etiquette. You're making me sound like a schmuck. Yeah, you are on the podcast. There you go. That's it. But what was I about? Oh, I liked the enthusiasm the team had. Then with the Gardner Minshew, I was not happy with that decision. I thought that, Aiden O'Connell outplayed him in the preseason. I think that had O'Connell not thrown that pick in the preseason, he would have gotten that starting. That was like a pick six that, really just downtrodden. But, the kid has a lot of moxie. And I think Minshew is one of those plug and play relief pitcher type quarterbacks. And, Key, I don't know. She's got the kid. Anyway, what was that? Oh, and I know, I apologize. I'm one of those squirrel people. I'm talking and then somebody says squirrel and I don't.
No, Cap, you're all good, brother. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of people talking to you. Listen, really quickly, in 5 sentences or less, just final thoughts on the game today and, your thoughts overall on the performance. Who stood out to you? Who really stunk it up out there? And how do you think the Bucs are going to finish here?
I think the Bucs they're good enough to limp into the playoffs. And again, this is not out of hate, but if the Falcons hadn't just been face planting themselves for several different things, I think that they would have been a more elite team. As and yeah, I know that the games they had with you were tight. I think that the Bucs might have enough to make the playoffs, but I'm sorry, gentlemen. I don't see anything other than a one and done, and that's at best.
It's all right. You're totally entitled to your opinion. You're probably not the only person who calls our show who would probably have that same viewpoint. I think a lot of Bucs fans may agree with you, but it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out down the stretch. Certainly a lot of discussions to be had for both of these teams here closing out the regular season. But Jay, we'll talk to you maybe more long form sometime soon. I appreciate you calling in and making the time for us, my friend. Have a great rest of your night.
Yes, I'm very sorry that there was a bunch of, ins and outs and people talking and things like that. But I know that I was trying to be here in full spirit, and I couldn't even get on the phone fast enough with people taking pictures and talking and things like that. So, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. I enjoyed the show. Apologies I couldn't make it in the other day because time got away from me. But I tell you, if you are listening to the Cannon Fodder Fire podcast, whatever the hell it is, You have a quality show with some quality gentlemen. So there is your tagline right there.
There it is. I'll make sure I use it. It'll open up the show for all of our audio listeners. Jay, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Hey, thanks again, brother. You guys take care.
You too, man. All right, let's round out these calls here and wrap up the show. From the 813, you've been holding for a long time, so we truly appreciate your patience. You're on the Cannon Fire podcast. Who's this?
What's going on, guys? It's Gio from Tampa.
Gio, how you doing, man?
I'm lost my voice a little bit from that game. I'm not gonna lie. Some stressful moments, but we came out with the win. Couple things I wanted to touch. I don't know, but Baker's been a question mark for me these past 2 weeks. Not necessarily a question mark, but like a concern. He's been playing, I guess, a little careless with the football. I guess if the interception today, the first one you want to call not on him because the guy made a great play, then sure. But the second one he made, I think that was just like an egregious play. He has no lineman right in his face, and he's throwing off 1 foot into double coverage. It just reminded me of Jameis. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't think the O-line necessarily. I mean, the O-line had a rough day today, but then again, I think Max Crosby and that D-line isn't horrible necessarily. But big loss with Bucky getting hurt. I hope he's good. And I saw on Instagram or on Twitter someone saying that we need to have this conversation about Todd Bowles. I saw someone post that, and I saw someone say, well, Todd Bowles didn't throw those 2 interceptions, and he's right. And the fumble too. I mean, the defense, say what you want, the defense actually had a good game today, in my opinion. They had 2 interceptions that were called back, and I thought the Zion one was an interception, but that's just me. But they got Aiden O'Connell in the first half, I think, once or twice, if I'm not mistaken. And then they were just Tyke Smith had that great interception when he was covering Brock Bowers. So, but the defense for the most part, I think, had a really solid game today. Just for me, the Baker's been a concern the past 2 weeks. I'm not gonna lie. That last week, you lose that game last week, and I mean, all these games matter, but last week that game was really important, and we almost lost it. Thank God, Anthony Nelson makes a play and we get the ball back. But this Baker's just been a little concerned for me. I don't know if it's something to keep an eye on, but it was just turning the ball over a little bit, a little too much for my liking. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think to keep an eye on. I think it's 5 turnovers in the last 2 games, so something you don't want to have become a trend, and it's an unfortunate trend right now. He's gone through these, throughout his career. Really, it's not something that's not normal. It's just sort of bad timing right now with the Bucs, trying to find a spot in the playoffs here. So hopefully he can clean it up over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and the Todd Bowles crowd, honestly, I think for the people who love to shout fire Todd Bowles after every game, win or lose, there's not a lot you can break him down on this week. I do think there is plenty of time for us to figure out that discussion. There's plenty of time left in the year, plenty of football left to be played. And if the postseason is a talking point added to that discussion at the end of the year, then we will cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think this week you got to kind of tip the cap to the old ball coach there. He had his guys ready to play. And in the absence of a lot of his starters, Antoine Winfield on the defensive side of the ball, you're missing all of your secondary starters in that safety room. Guys are stepping up. They're making plays. Tyke Smith is stepping up and making plays at crucial points in the game. So Bowles had a good week. It was an ugly win, but a win is a win is a win. And luckily the Buccaneers don't deal in hypotheticals. They deal in wins and losses. And this week was their 3rd win in a row. So yeah, I think there's definitely some things that need to be worked on. Baker Mayfield, it kind of sucks because I've really gone out on a limb for Baker these last couple of weeks, and he just keeps playing worse. And, this time last year, I had officially hitched my saddle. Baker's my quarterback. I still like the guy. I still think we can win with him. But it's definitely concerning, and it's something they're going to have to fix here before the postseason. But, Gio, any final thoughts before we let you go, my friend?
Just we got a big game coming up Sunday. I'd say the toughest game on our schedule for the remainder of the year, regular season wise. Got to handle business against the Chargers. It's not going to be an easy win. But hopefully the injuries that we had today, hopefully it's nothing. I don't know the injury on Winfield. I know it was his knee, but hopefully he plays next week. I don't know, but hopefully Bucky's good too. But hopefully we can just go out next week and take a win over the Chargers and be 8-6. So
absolutely, Gio. We appreciate you calling in, my friend. We'll talk to you soon. Go Bucs.
Go Bucs. Appreciate it.
Evan, I think that's the show, my friend. We have talked about just about everything I think we can. The only thing I am not 100% sure that we mentioned is punter Jack Browning making his debut today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He wasn't great. We had mentioned the special teams putting this Buccaneers football team in difficult situations for most of the day, and he was to blame for a lot of that. The Bucs still need to find an answer at punter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give more than one game, but I mean, also, I don't think he really effed up.
Sure.
Like, Trenton Gill last week twice, messed up, like screwed up, 20-yard punt or whatever, and then the whole thing with trying to get the ball in the landing zone and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, definitely not like something where I'm like, oh my God, yeah, like this guy's great, but like, give him another week. Just see what he's got. I don't know if you're gonna find an answer, this season. That's something that the Bucs will probably have to go into the offseason looking for. As long as you don't completely screw it up, right? I think that's what you're hoping for now out of the punter position. Just don't have any freaking 20-yard shanks, that really, really hurt you. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all we pretty much needed to discuss. I think obviously the Bucs 7-6 now, first time being above 500 in a long time. It's been a while since they were above 500. So and now in first place in NFC South. But again, just because you're in first place on December 8th doesn't mean you're going to be in first place at the end of the regular season. So there's still a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. Let's really quickly. We kind of said we were going to make this a regular segment. We will close it out. It'll take not even 5 minutes. Let's give out some game balls here for top performers on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. We'll do 3, maybe 4. I'll throw one out. You throw one out. I'll throw one out. You throw one out if you think there's one more.
Yeah. I think 3 is the good number. That's what we did last week. So.
Got to start things off with the defensive captain, the ageless wonder, number 54, Lavonte David, had a big time sack, got after Aiden O'Connell today, and then was able to recover the fumble on that big time botch snap. This is just a big game for him. We've talked a lot about Lavonte David so far this season, and there are areas of his game where he's just not as fast as he used to be, but the football IQ and being the right man in the right spot at the right time is still something he's just really good at.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And you don't know. Again, we got 4 regular season games left. This might be it. So it's if you're a fan watching it, sort of cherish that, right? But it's been a long career, and can't play forever, and who knows? You're sort of on a year-to-year basis at this point. So I'm going to give my game ball to Rachaad White. 17 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown, and 2 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown. The first game of his career where he had both a passing, receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. So going to give my game ball to Rachaad White. Really stepped up in the absence of Bucky Irving. So I think he did a really nice job.
I'm going to give my last one to Kayvon Merriweather. I think he was probably the most productive safety who stepped up. I know Tyke Smith had the big-time interception, and he is definitely an honorable mention, but Kayvon Merriweather, considering he was on the Lions practice squad a couple of weeks ago, spent some time away from Tampa Bay. This is his second stint with the team. I thought what he was able to do today in that role was really impressive, and I would say another honorable mention really quickly, unless this is your last game ball, is Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I thought we're just doing 3, so I don't have any more game balls to give out. So I mean, shout out McMillan. Obviously had 2 touchdowns, so a good day for him. Hopefully he can keep building on that. So
the Bucs have got to complete a game. We have got to complete a segment. We'll figure out a way to make that flow a little more efficiently, but I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us on a live edition of the Cannon Fire podcast, breaking things down between the Bucs and the Raiders. 7-6, back above 500, and the 4th seed, as long as they hang on to that division lead in the NFC South, feels good. Feels good. Todd Bowles said it on the podium today. Feels good to be playing meaningful football this late into the calendar year. The Buccaneers certainly in charge of their own destiny. 4 games left in the 2024 regular season. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_Daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What are you working on this week?
Yeah, so obviously going to have the post-game reactions from Twitter. Did not have it out last week as planned because I got very sick. So that's why I wasn't on the midweek show either. But going to have it out this week. And then also, later on in the week, going to be having the Q&A with the Chargers page. So stay tuned to BucsNation.com for that. As far as the YouTube goes, we're still, with our regularly scheduled programming, right? We're going to have something for you guys almost every single day. If you guys are listening on audio, we appreciate you listening on audio. But if you want a little bit more of video entertainment and short form entertainment, head over to the Cannon Fire Podcast YouTube channel. We have best and worst from this game. Then coming up later in the week, we'll have betting the Bucs as well as players to watch leading up to the following game. So plenty of stuff here on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, we got the midweek show between all of that and then the game preview to wrap up that week's slate of coverage. Big week for Tampa Bay. As we said, the Chargers, nothing to snooze at. Coming into this game, following a tough contest with the Kansas City Chiefs. It'll be interesting to see what kind of team the Bucs are going to be squaring off against. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram, and Twitter at Reticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. But that's the show. Thank you once again to everybody for hanging out with us tonight over in the YouTube live chat. Consider becoming a member of the Cannon Fire crew if you'd like to support the show directly, or just subscribe. That is free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Leave a thumbs up and join the chat. Support the show. We appreciate Buck Wild, the moderator, holding it down tonight. Miguel R., Edwin Hernandez, Stan Glassman, AJ Rader checking in, Zach VFL Whitfield, Ed Gein. Oh, Ed Gein, great. A Clark Design, Jonathan Thomas, Pewter 941, Brutal as Bucks. Anybody else that I may have missed? I'm trying to find our super chat here from Amazement. Thank you, Amazement, for the $9.99 super chat. And all the rest of our Cannon Fire crew. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening. We will talk to you later this week with more Buccaneer news and updates. I'm your host, Rhett Matthews, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will see you in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.